Let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God.
We invite Anthony to give us the message. Good morning. Good morning. My name is Anthony Dang. Just want to start out with prayer first before we begin. If you could bow your heads and close your eyes. God, just thank you for this opportunity to share your word and just what you're doing in New York City. And God, I just thank you for this opportunity to share and be with my brothers and sisters at Boon Church. I pray, Lord, that you just bless me and bless the people in this congregation. God, I pray that your Spirit speaks through me, and also may you just rest upon me, God. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Quick introduction about who I am and kind of. My name is Anthony Dang. I'm actually from Elmhurst, Queens, so it's not so far from here, about 30-40 minutes away by train and by bus. I grew up most of my life in Queens. I come from an immigrant family that came here in the 1980s and with the hope of just building a new life. Right now I'm actually a campus minister for a campus ministry called Campus Renewal Ministries, which is based in Austin, Texas. I'm a staff worker right now. But coming from, just to share a quick testimony about where I come from, my family came here with to raise a family and moved from all the way in Guangdong, China to Elmhurst, Queens. And they raised me and my sister in Elmhurst for about 20 so odd years. And me and her went to college. I went to the City College of New York, and my sister went to Stony Brook University. My parents aren't believers. It's an interesting thing how I came to faith. I gave my life to Jesus when I was in high school at the High School of Art and Design. My sister, who's a person who came to faith around 2003, always prayed for me, and her hope was to see me come to faith. And God really brought me to faith in 2005, around Father's Day, June 19th. And I remember just her perseverance in prayer and just seeing me come to faith. Was something that I cherished a lot about. And going through high school and going through those years of just developing and just learning about faith in Jesus, I kind of questioned where am I going to go with my faith and where I was going to go after high school and going to college. And so I was I was an architecture major, and I was I'm going to go into college, the City College of New York, as an architecture student. I'm going to probably be an architect and design great buildings and have a fancy house at the end of the day. And that was totally not what I expected, and God took me on a different route. And where God was taking me was towards college students and where college students were, and why college students are a great mission field in today's time. There's about 1.3 million college students in New York City. That represents about 70 to 80 plus nations in New York, around the world, to be exact. And the awesome thing is, the amazing thing is, these are your future leaders and also the world changers of the world tomorrow. And why was God calling me to reach college students? I was totally perplexed. I was praying with my college fellowship, why are you calling me to kind of go into college ministry? And I remember just the years of studying architecture and also studying history. There was this great architect. His name was Antonio Gaudi, and he designed this beautiful church in Barcelona, Spain, starting out in the 1880s. And his vision for this church and his dream was to build something to exemplify and also to share about the gospel of Jesus through the sculptures and through walking around the church. And Antonio Gaudi, when he designed this church, he designed 3 facades of the church, each facing different directions, but each with a different purpose. And each facade, while I was kind of pondering on it, represented pillars of our faith. His first facade, which was finished in his lifetime, was the Nativity facade. The Nativity facade represented, when he built it, very abstract in terms of creation and also the beauty of it. There's so much symbolism and also different ways of design. There was like doves. There was like the story of Jesus' birth. It was unique because he placed it in the northeast where the sun rises and where our hope also rises. When Christmas comes along, we have this hope that knowing that Jesus is coming and knowing that the hope of the world rests upon Jesus and not on human world peace or any of these things. But it rests on Jesus. He placed the nativity facade on the northeast, knowing that a ray of hope, and when the sun rises, it rises on Jesus because he's the bringer of all peace. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. Then I was like, what are the other parts of this building? And I was like, the other facade, which is the Passion facade. I was like, the Passion facade. I was looking this up. I was like, it was designed so symmetrically straight, narrow. It looked like a skeleton in a way, and Gaudi wanted to, when he kind of designed it, he wanted to show the heart, the suffering, and also the meaning of sacrifice, of why Jesus came on this earth, to sacrifice all that he had for us. These facades represent more than a reality of the Nativity and the crucifixion and the message of Christmas and Easter that towers over us, and also represents our lives and our faith and how we walk it out. And I was like, so there's two facades. What's the last one? The last facade was his glory facade, which is the main entrance of the church. He designed it so this church is not even finished itself. It's supposed to be finished in 2026. The glory facade, which is now being built, exemplifies our walk. And I was like, it kind of reflects our walk in faith and everyone's walk in faith, in walking towards that final goal where Jesus comes again. And the glory facade, which is being built now, exemplifies the journey of man and his learning about where God is and coming from. And I was like, wow, this building is really awesome. And I was kind of pondering, like, why did God bring me back to learning about this building and where he was taking me? And I came to a mission conference called Urbana, and I was wondering where God wanted me to go. And I remember sitting with a bunch of my friends from InterVarsity, which is a Christian fellowship that I was part of at City College. I remember sitting with them, and as I was sitting, there was this lady who came up, and she was sharing about her faith and her husband who sacrificed everything for just serving people in Afghanistan. And he was an optometrist. And one of the verses that she shared was, "No greater love than this, than a friend would lay down his life for his friend." And I remember, after pondering about the church and pondering about her verse and learning about, it wasn't a waste for her husband to spend a lifetime in Afghanistan from the 60s into the 2000s serving the people in Afghanistan and giving free eye exams to people who didn't have much. And also his wife taught English to people, to Afghan women who didn't have the ability or the right to read and write. And I was like, is this where you're calling me to, God? Where are you calling me to go on mission? And I was like, I don't want to do this. My parents don't want me to do this. My parents want me to kind of like earn like a six-figure salary job and just pay for everything and be their 401k at the end of the day. And that's what my parents wanted. But that's not what God wanted for me. And right there and then, I remember just sitting there and I was like, God, if you're going to call me to go on the mission field, I'm like 23, I'm going to be right out of college. Like, I'm going to trust and follow you. And I remember just coming home and making that decision and kind of sitting with my parents at the dinner table. The first words they said, like, "Oh, Anthony, what are you going to do after college?" I'm like, well, I have this new job. Yeah, I'm going to be doing mission work or something related to the church. And they're like, "What? What are you doing? This is everything that we never wanted for you. You know, we paid you through college. We sacrificed everything for you. You know, like, how can you do this to us?" And I was like, because God was calling me to. You know, sitting at dinner, they were like, you know, how do you know God's going to provide? How do you know God's going to bring food from heaven or something like that? I'm like, God's going to provide, I guess. Just like, no, you have to work for all your food. You have to work for your money. And I was like, but that's not where, you know, that's not what I believe in. That's what you believe in. And I was shocked because hearing these words from my parents, who I grew up with, loving, and really, I know they knew the best at heart. You know, just hearing that, I remember just sitting there and I prayed. You know, I was like, God, if you're going to call me to campus ministry, if you're going to call me to reach college students with the gospel of Jesus, you know, I'm going to need your help because I can't do this alone. And God gave me peace to walk through. And I know that my parents are still on the fence about what I'm doing in terms of ministry, and also what I'm doing now in terms of reaching college students. I want to share a little bit about our organization, kind of what we do in New York City. Campus Renewal Ministry is based in Austin, Texas. Our ministry have hubs in Austin, in Tennessee, and in Atlanta, Georgia. And our hope and mission is to see greater things in terms of united movements on campuses, to see more students being reached by the gospel. And a lot of our work is being catalysts and uniting different ministries and different churches in these organizations on campuses to do more for campuses and praying, interceding. I don't know if we could have a PowerPoint up. So some of our work we do is, this is a survey that we took 3 years ago. One of the things that we do is we survey a campus and also recently surveyed the city, and kind of to show what's happening on a campus. And a lot of the times there isn't this data showing what's happening in terms of campuses and also the mission field that campus ministries are doing. So you could go to the next one. There's about 88 college campuses in the metro area, which is as far as Stony Brook out in Long Island to as far as like Rutgers and New Brunswick and Westchester and Staten Island. There's about 1.3 college students. About 831,886 students are in the immediate metro area. And within that, in the metro city limits, there's about 600 plus. Next slide. 49 colleges are touched by ministry right now currently, by organizations such as InterVarsity, Campus Crusade, KCCC, a church like Times Square Church or Remnant Christian Fellowship, which is in New York City. About 13 of those have 3 or more different ministries working with them. This is how many campuses are being touched, but there's about 50 of them, 30 of them not being reached by a campus or a church. Next slide. And you know, about 5,000 of them do not attend a sponsored event or a church. You know, a lot of these students that we get to, you know, the survey was 3 years ago. These numbers may be different, but this is the landscape of just of the campus itself and also the harvest field. Next slide. You know, a large percent of looking at the media area, there's about 2,000 students that attend a church or a parachurch group on a campus on average, attending. And then the large yellow pie is how many students are not being reached. And there's less than a percentage of college students now involved in campus ministry and also involved in reaching their college campus. Next slide. So these are a rough estimate of how many distribution in terms of like students and also where the harvest force is also. Like students, you know, involved and also students who aren't involved in terms of reaching a campus. Next slide. This is the potential in terms of students who graduate, of students who stay and also leave. So this is just in terms of students who graduate, like there's about 44% of them staying, about 38.9% of them, you know, unsure about whether to leave or not, and then about 11% of them leave, like New York City. Next slide. Involvement in non-religious groups or clubs. This is the amount of this is a statistic in terms of like Christian students involved in other clubs on campus. And a lot of our organization's focus is getting students more involved with other clubs, but also reaching those other ministries and starting small groups in those ministries. Small groups in those clubs, like the Muslim International students, or the chess club, or the athletic club. Next slide. And yeah, this is also of what's going on in terms of how many students are involved in reaching their friends. Next. And then time spent praying. Our organization is focused on seeing more prayer happening on campus, united prayer and time, because as an organization we feel that prayer has been a great vehicle in terms of shaping our campuses and moving the mission field and seeing more students come out, reaching more students. And that happens when the body of Christ and the body as a whole come together on a campus, on a given campus, and praying often and praying consistently and daily. Next. And this is spiritual life, and this is how the status of college campuses in terms of Christian students are now. Well, 3 years ago, but these numbers may be different. Next. And this is in terms of evangelism. But I have another slide. If you could put that up, the Longhorn Chronicles. These are just the numbers that we have right now, what the status of New York City and what our organization as a whole wants to see happen more on campuses. In terms of uniting different ministries and different campuses, our hopes is to see more staff on campuses and more churches as well involved. And this is kind of what we did on our main flagship campus in the University of Texas as a whole. This is a survey of what happens on one campus, and in terms of consistent prayer and having churches also involved in a neighboring city would look like. Next slide. So at the University of Texas, there's about 63 campus ministries, about 30 church-based groups, 24 parachurch groups, 5 denominational partnerships. Next one. And this is, if you go down, this is the size of ministry in terms of growth and what has happened over the years in terms of consistent prayer and also united evangelism over the years. Next one. You could scroll down a bit. I don't know if you could, or but the number of students involved over the years have changed. Next one. And ministries that add students. Next. And this is 20 years of, our ministry has been around since 1991. And this is 20 years of work of seeing different ministries coming together and working together. There's about 199 campus ministers on one campus of 52,000. Next one. And this is a lot of, in terms of ethnicity, mostly Anglo staff workers and also Asian Americans. For the majority of Latino, African Americans, and other ethnicities. Next one. And this is the trend that has happened in terms of what can happen in terms of churches and also campus ministries working together in terms of growth and seeing more ministries and also campuses being reached in New York City. What potential can happen. Next one. Student ministries. This is a quick survey of what's happening. There's about 10% of the student population involved now. 20 years ago, about in 1991, a group of 12 students started praying at 7 in the morning. It used to be 4% of students being involved in ministry. Now 10% of students are involved in ministry. But this is our consistent prayer. And also, our ministry providing this data for campus ministers and also pastors to see what effectively are we doing in terms of reaching more students and what's working, what's not. Next one. And this is the number of students now being involved from 2001 to 2013. Next one. And this is just a statistic about how many people are attending large groups, small groups, or in terms of leadership, and also attending prayer meetings. And involved in local service projects and also mission trips. Next. just the graph about how things have changed in terms of leadership, worship, small group, and all that. Next. And this is just a projection of like what the Christian community and projection of the University of Texas and what's happening, and what we want to see happening more on campuses like NYU, Stony Brook, City College. Next. And percentage of classes, you know, this is self-explanatory, but yeah, next. If you could go to slide, I think, 10, or just keep going. Next. I have next. And now we collect a lot of these stories and what God's moving on campus and on a given day, and just sharing this with the community at large. This is actually downloadable on our website, texasunited.org. So next. Next. And challenges that campus ministers face. And so this gives a detail of what you can pray for in terms of campus ministry, and what we want to try to do is to have this available for churches to see what's happening on a campus and what prayer requests there are needed. Next. And this is a Christian student survey that we do in terms of surveying what's happening. Next. So we do this, we surveyed like 350 college Christian students on campus and kind of show their spiritual life and why, what's going on in terms of their spirituality, and also their parents, and kind of finding out like what are Christian students struggling with, and when they go into college, what are some vehicles that as a church and also as a campus ministry we can do to better equip them and also to mentor them and disciple them. Next. 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 And so this is a rough student survey, but keep going. Next. And so next. So you can see this if you download it, our Texas United site. But one of the big things we want to see happen more is missional communities, and these missional communities that we are different than small groups, than typical small groups, where we invite students and we also train them in a course called the Spark course to be equipped in terms of reaching a people group that they feel they're spending most of their time, 90%, 80% of their time in. And out of that people group, they form a team of a cohort of like 5 to 10 people. And out of that cohort, they're praying about every week for their community. So I got to meet 10 students who were reaching Muslim international students, and their heart is to reach Muslim students from Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan, Iran, at the University of Texas. And a lot of what they do is plan strategically, how can we reach Muslim students with the gospel? And so their thing was, hey, there's this program where we can adopt an international student, an Arab international student, as our buddy and friend, and we could show them around the University of Texas, and gives us an opportunity to share the gospel. We want to see that happening more in terms of New York City campuses, and also in terms of other campuses nationwide. And out of that, we have one of our interns who got to do this. One of his Muslim friends was like, I know what you're doing. You're trying to convert me to Christianity. And it was like, yes, I am. Yes, I am. And you should do the same. And to have that boldness to even say that, our intern was like, because he had the heart to reach Muslim students, and he spent most of his time with Muslim students. Right now he's in Morocco and Egypt on a study abroad program because he has his heart to reach Muslim students. Next slide. This is the impact of what missional community can do, and what, in terms of pulling data of like what's happening in terms of seeing more students coming to Christ. We saw last year we had about 200 missional communities. Even though we had only 184 missional community on one campus, we saw about 5,000 of them having a relationship with a student that knew about Jesus. About 1,842 unbelieving students were involved in other campus ministries. So they were kind of mixing in terms of different ministries and different churches working together to reach a larger amount of students. And so we saw about 500 plus students coming to Christ last semester. Actually, that picture, the guy who's getting dunked, he's actually a Chinese international student, and he gave his life to Jesus. Like, this is over the summer that he got baptized. So, and just to seeing that, we want to see that more happening in New York City campuses in terms of seeing more students coming to Christ, because I went to a school about 16,000 students, and our campus ministry is about 100 students. How can we see 572 students coming to Christ a semester? If my hope was if we saw 572 coming to Christ a semester at my school, our entire campus would be like Christian already, like 90% of it. And that came, our organization believed that, it started out with prayer, and prayer was always the center of where our focus was, Christ-centered, purpose-driven in terms of prayer. And out of that prayer, out of that united prayer, having leaders and different campus ministers praying together, we saw more students coming to Christ over the past 20 years on one campus. Next. And so this is what has happened over the years in terms of salvation, just mission communities. Even though mission communities have decreased, salvation has increased in a way, and still going at the University of Texas. And our ministry, Campus Renewal Ministries, work alongside other ministries such as InterVarsity, Campus Crusade, as a catalyst of starting new movements on campuses and also new movements on different states. And that's our hope, to see more of this happening. But at the end of the day, this can't happen if our organizations and also our campus ministries aren't working together. And we also need the help of the churches in the local areas, because that's why we want to involve the churches. Because at the end of the day, after they graduate, a lot of these students won't have won't know where to go. So that's why we want to involve local churches as well, to be more involved in terms of reaching more college students. So they actually have a church when they transition out of college to be a part of a church community. And so that's why we need the churches also involved in terms of reaching these 80 plus campuses in New York City. Next. This is how many international students are on a given on one campus. This is the people of the world that in New York City. These numbers may be like bigger for like different campuses, but these are the future world changers and also students that will go to the respective countries and also be sharing the gospel. What if we get them now in college, where most students aren't being reached? There's about, like I said, 1% of students involved in terms of reaching the campus. How can we see more Christian students on our campuses reaching more? Next. And these are the mission communities that I was talking about, of starting. Some started out, in frats and sororities as well. They joined these teams because these different ministries partner. This is what happens when the body comes together. They become an example of what Christ is all about and the gospel. And this is what our organization does. And I'm free to talk afterwards, after service, if you have any more questions or all that. But I want to end my time and kind of share something that after praying and joining this organization as a staff worker, God put it on my heart that even though as a missionary there's a lot of even a pastor, I was like, pastor's like the big, like you're like the star of the church or something, right? But I learned that even being a missionary, a lot of people like, oh man, you gave up everything to be a missionary. I was like, well, yeah, but I'm not really the star of the show. And I learned just for this past year, just learning that a lot of people that I've got to meet with, and also people sitting here, that you're also a part of this great story and this great story of working with God in terms of reaching where you're at, in terms of your vocation, and also where you're studying. I think my job is not best as everyone else's job here. So I think where you guys are working and where you guys are spending most of your time is one of the greatest mission fields ever, because you're spending a lot of your time with people who don't know Jesus. And that God's calling us to be a part of something bigger in terms of reaching more students, and also people in your workplace. Because life is not a short story. I'm not the star. And so, like Gaudi, who designed this great building in Barcelona, Spain, with 3 facades showing and sharing about the life of Jesus. He saw that, when he was building, he knew it wasn't going to be finished in his lifetime. And he knew that these architects that are now finishing his building now, that his work will always outshine him. And he knew that God's work was always going to outshine him. He gave his life constructing these edifices that outshone and outlasted him. We too contribute to what we can to this epic story of God, a tale with many characters, vast battle scenes, a million interweaving subplots, and many perplexing twists and turns. And a lot of our stories are intermingled in God's story in terms of seeing a lot more students being reached by the campuses that are around us, like Queens College, which has about 2 ministries now involved. And there's about 14,000 students that don't know Jesus. Like, how can we change that? And it starts with prayer, and starts with the church coming together in New York City, and also leaders in the city to praying together in your workplaces, praying for more to happen. And that's it. I want to close this in prayer. Thank you for your time. God, I just thank you for just what you're doing in the lives of people in Boon Church, and I thank you for just giving me the opportunity to share about, God, what you're doing in New York City, and just our hope and our dream to see more students being reached, to see at least 3,300 more staff in these different campus ministries, God. I thank you for allowing me to share about your love and also about your sacrifice, God. I thank you for all the people here. I pray that you bless them in everything that they do in your name and in your glory. In Jesus' name.